Hey everyone, Steven here, and welcome to my little library of horrors. Well, I've got a special guest with me today. Say hi, Elsa. Can you say hello? No? Okay. Yeah, Elsa's my pet bird. Well, our family pet bird. One of four of them. But she's our most friendliest, but I like to call her my neediest because she loves her attention. I was trying to put her away so I could come record, but she just was not having it today, so I figured, what the heck, why not? As long as you don't poop in here. But anyway, before I get started with the video, I just wanted to say that this wasn't exactly the video I had planned for this week. I unfortunately ended up getting a bout of food poisoning the other day, and I pretty much spent all day in bed. I did not have the energy to do it, and, it's going to be a longer video, so I didn't have the energy to do it. It will be up next week, though. But thankfully, I did have one video idea, stuffed in the back just in case for emergencies. Hence today's video. So today I'm going to be reviewing an author that is quite well known, pretty much with any reader, honestly. Even if you're not, I'm sure you know the name. And that would be Ray Bradbury. And Ray Bradbury is, like I said, he's a very well-known author, has influenced many, many, many ideas in media and pop culture, since he started writing. And I had never read anything about by him. So I kind of wanted to change that, and I decided to go with a story that I personally feel checks all the boxes I want in a story. And that is Something Wicked This Way Comes. So the story itself is about two boys that go to visit this carnival that randomly comes to town, and things just start to kind of go awry. They start to realize what the carnival is, what's going on, and things start to kind of spiral from there. And so what did I think about it? Well, it was okay. It was just okay. Now, before you break out the torches and the pitchforks, let me explain. Overall, I did enjoy the story, which I think honestly, the characters are fantastic. Like, there's, what is it? It's William Halloway and James Nightshade. They're the two younger boys. They're our main protagonists. There's Will's father, which is Charles Halloway. We have Mrs. Foley, and then there's the circus people, which is the illustrated man. We have there's like a blind deaf witch. There's like this crazy dwarf. Like this really emaciated man, and a couple other people thrown in there. So, but the illustrated man is sort of the ringleader of the whole thing. So, I really just enjoyed the characters overall. I think the illustrated man is a very conniving character. Like, he has this presence about him that, when he comes on scene, like, he grabs your attention. Something's about to happen. He has this allure to him where it's like this kind of smooth, mysterious kind of thing he has to him, where he has this charisma that draws you in, but he doesn't completely reveal who he is. You want to know what he has to say, and I love that about him. With the boys, they're sort of like the good, and I don't want to say evil kind of, I want to say light and dark, I think, is a better metaphor for them. William being the light, and Jim being the dark. William's very careful, very methodical, tries to, think things through before he goes through with it, whereas James is very impulsive, very standoffish, not afraid to be honest and upfront with what he's thinking and what he believes needs to be said and done. So I think they play off each other very well. It's scenes where James will get in trouble and William will be like, well, I told you so. And then there'll be scenes where, William thinks it's not a great idea, and then it turns out James was right. Should have been what was done. So it plays off really well, both of them being right and wrong throughout the story. But honestly, I really enjoyed Charles's character the most, Will's dad. He's this older man, which, what is he in the book? Mid-40s, which isn't really that old, I'm sure, back then it seemed really old, but, he was in his mid-40s, and he had William very young, so, we get a lot of depth into Will's dad, where he basically spent a lot of time self-isolating. He felt, I guess the best way to put it, Neil Gaiman said it, books were safer than other people. And so he spent a lot of his life in libraries. He got a job as a janitor in a library. So he spends, late nights by himself, checking out the books and things like that, which is, sounds like a dream job to me. So, but I really relate with Charles's character as, I guess that's kind of how I feel. I like my alone time. I like to be by myself and in my library with my books. And, he spends a lot of time, I guess, reflecting on himself as a father as well. And I can really appreciate that because it's, there's a lot of times where you do, as a parent, really question yourself and how you're doing and, if you're doing the right thing, and I feel, at least from my perspective as a man, it's really important to, I think, take a look at yourself in that light. Am I doing the best that I can as a father, as a parent to my children? What have I done that possibly scarred them? What have I done that has upset them? What are the generational things that have been dumped onto me that I'm seeing myself doing to my own kids that I can try and break? And, it was really comforting and really hard-hitting to see Charles really break that down when, there's a scene where him and Will basically just have this heart-to-heart on the stairs. It's old age with young age, kind of bridging this gap between the future and the past. You know what I mean? And it's a really heartwarming scene. It's something that I think is pretty much important for all parents to kind of have with your kids, especially as they start to grow into that, almost preteen age of, 11 or 12 and things like that. So, that scene really hit me hard, and I really loved it. So yeah, Charles, I love as a character. I think he was wonderful, and yeah. What else can I say? I guess. Oh, the action scenes are great. When things are actually happening in the story, the tension is fantastic. Bradbury is wonderful at building tension in his scenes. There's one scene where the boys are hiding out in basically a sewer under the street while the parade's going on. And, the parade suddenly stops and the characters of the parade are, kind of spreading out trying to find the boys while all the adults in the city just kind of seem to be so oblivious as to what's going on. And it's, the Illustrated Man and Mr. Holloway are having a conversation basically right above the grate where James and Will are hiding. And it's fantastic scene. Great dialogue, excellent tension. And the same thing in the climax. It's wonderful tension. And I really love the climax because it revolves around this certain magic trick that I know exactly how it works. I was very into magic as a kid, so, I used to watch all those, what was it? It was that show where, they had the masked magician, he would break down how tricks worked and things like that. and it was this specific trick. Once, it started to unravel in the book, I was like, hey, I know exactly how this works. So, sure, maybe a little, I don't want to say it dampened the climax a little to me, because it didn't really affect it. If anything, I felt more excited that I knew what was going on. It was kind of like, I was in the audience with all the other characters watching this scene happen, and I'm like kind of the only one that knows how this is going to go down. So I really like that. So why did I not love it? My biggest gripe with the book is the prose is just way too flowery for me. Like, it is. I spent, honestly, like, probably the first, I want to say the first 100 pages just wondering what the hell exactly was happening. Like, let me see if I can just pull out, like, even one sentence that just kind of, like, I have no idea what was being said. Let's see if I can find. It was kind of like, so it would be like, Will looked this way, but he didn't look this way. James ran this way, but wasn't running this way. And I'm just like, so what are they doing? What's going on in this scene? Are they doing it or are they not doing it? Are they just standing here looking at me? Like, I don't know. It feels like there's sometimes, like, there's paragraphs with these overly long, just, like I said, flowery prose. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. People are gonna like it. Bradbury is a legend for a reason. And people, point out his prose as one of those reasons. It's just, for me, my style of reading and what I like, it just didn't work for me. I felt confused the whole time, and not in the confused way of what's going on, as far as like, okay, I kind of have pieces of like, is this going to happen or is this going to happen? It's more of what's going on. I have no friggin' idea. I have no clue what's going on right now. And thankfully that starts to die out, like I said, after the first 100 pages, when he starts to kind of put those long similes and things like that to the side. It doesn't dump it completely, but makes it one or two sentences instead of 4 or 5 trying to get one idea across, It's much like Stephen King. His prose isn't flowery, but I also don't need 2 pages of explaining a tabletop. You know what I mean? So it was like, I felt myself at the beginning just being like, okay, so is anything going to happen? Is this just word salad to me? To me, that's just what it was. It felt a lot like a word salad. And, I'm glad I stuck with it because, like I said, I really did end up enjoying the second half of the book when things started to take place and scenes were happening. And it wasn't just, like I said, a bunch of description of the setting and people hanging out and doing nothing. Maybe they were doing things. Like I said, I don't know. The way he wrote it and explained it makes it seem like they're just standing there trying to decide what to do and do nothing in the end. So that's honestly like my major gripe with the book, is that the prose just becomes too overly complicated for me to really focus on the story. Like, I'll have to read the sentence 2 or 3 times to figure out, okay, so this is what they're doing. This is what he means by this. Instead of being able to read it, take it, and continue on with the idea. But that's just me. Like I said, some people like poetic, flowery prose. I don't mind it, but not so heavy like Bradbury's is, or even like, I don't care for Shakespeare, honestly. Like I said, I think that's too flowery for me. So, but yeah, that's honestly my major gripe with the story. Maybe another nitpick I really have is, during the second half of the book, James sort of feels like a secondary character rather than a main protagonist. And I feel like that is kind of a big issue with a lot of writers when it comes to having 2 main protagonists. Like, for me, I feel like with one, obviously you could have a lot of focus on that character. They're the main character. You can do whatever you want with them. You know they're there. You know what they're doing at all times or whatever. Or you could have a group of people where, there's multiple things going on with different people during the climax. Everyone feels important. Where it comes to breakdown 2, somebody's going to get left behind while the action's going on. Well, I guess even that doesn't really make much sense, because it's like, essentially there's 3 protagonists in the climax with Charles, William, and James, but it really feels like 2 with William and Charles, and James is kind of like somewhere else within the circus or the carnival, but not what the climax is like while the climax is going on. And it was like, that scene with Charles and Williams happens, the climax, and then there's almost this second climax with James, but it's kind of like, I don't know. I didn't find it as exciting as the first one. I think, like, had Bradbury maybe switched focal points in that climax, where it's like, okay, this is what's going on with Jimmy and William, but here's what's happening with James also, which he kind of does, but like I said, it's very rarely mentioned to the point where I was like, oh yeah, James is a protagonist in this story. So that was kind of like my other kind of, I guess, critique of the story, is I wish James had been more incorporated in the later half of the story, because he is a main character in it. A main protagonist, honestly. But yeah, so overall, what did I take from it? Well, I learned that you should really try to live in the moment, The book really kind of drives home the point of, James and William wanting to grow up. They want to become older. They want to have the freedoms that adults have and be able to do what they want, while Charles kind of pines over the mistakes he's made as a child and wishes he could go back and fix them and, perhaps make himself a better man in the end. He really struggles with his overall age, especially being a father to William. He feels like he had William too late and isn't able to relate with his son. He feels like the age gap is too big. So, with that, Bradbury kind of points out, we all wish we could go back to our childhood. Times were easier. We would have all the knowledge we have now to make our life better in the future. But he points out the negatives we don't look when it comes to that. The relationships we've come to build are no longer. We will see, our parents, our friends, they're going to have no idea who we are. They know us as full-grown adults. Seeing us as kids, like I said, they have no idea, and that's honestly terrifying. If you really think about it, you'd be completely alone. Probably more alone than I am in my library right now. And, I think that's kind of where the real terror lies within the story, is, focusing so much on mistakes that we've made instead of focusing on the choices we can make to make our life better. And it reminds me of this quote from Jaws, the book, where Peter Benchley says, if you spend too much time reminiscing on old joys, you'll start to feel like you'll never have them again. Not the exact quote, but what was it? It was, the past always seems better than it was, and the future will never seem as good as it can be. If you spend too much time reliving old joys, you'll feel like you'll never have them again. And that's pretty much what I got out of the book. And I hope, those of you watching kind of take that lesson too. Sure, There's things we've done in our past that are crappy, that suck, we wish we could take back. But we can't. And we kind of have to learn to accept that and learn to recognize when that situation may show up again and to be able to make a better decision when that time comes up. But overall, I'm going to go ahead and give Something Wicked This Way Comes 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, I didn't hate it, didn't completely love it either. I really feel had the prose been a little simpler for me, I really would have enjoyed the story more. But I absolutely think it's worth checking out. It's a major part of storytelling in general. Like I've said, it's influenced a lot of media, even today. So if you've never read Bradbury before, I would recommend it. I wouldn't absolutely recommend it out of general recommendations for reading, but if you're looking for a Bradbury recommendation, I definitely recommend checking this one out. But that's going to be it for me today, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Feel free to drop me a like. That would really help, and of course is always appreciated. Feel free to drop a comment and let me know your favorite Bradbury book. I'd love to check out more of his work. If you like the review, I'll leave a link to a couple more reviews I have on my channel, and I'll see you guys all next week. Bye, everyone.